I'm Aurora, 30, female, and she tried to destroy me quietly, so I made my comeback loud enough to silence her forever. It's not a story I tell lightly, but it's a testament to the power of a broken heart and a betrayed soul. Chloe, my best friend of over a decade, was the one who encouraged me to start my food blog, the one who helped me turn my passion for cooking into a successful brand. I was the chef, the creative force, and she, with her sharp business acumen, was my partner, my anchor. We were an unstoppable team, or so I naively believed until my dream became a threat to her ambition. The first hint of her jealousy, I now realize, came during a celebratory dinner. My blog had just hit a major milestone, a viral recipe that brought in thousands of new followers. I was ecstatic. Chloe, I said, my voice bubbling with excitement. We did it. We're finally getting noticed. She smiled, but her eyes held a strange, calculating glint. She retorted, a subtle coldness in her tone. Aurora, your brand is great, but it's my strategic genius that put it on the map. You just make the food. Her words stung, a subtle reminder that in her eyes I was just the talent, not the brains. Then came the subtle sabotage. I had a potential collaboration with a high-end food magazine, a huge opportunity for my brand. I was so excited. But Chloe, seeing my growing confidence, would subtly dismiss my creative ideas, telling me they were too niche or not sophisticated enough. She'd accidentally delete client emails from my inbox or forget to pass along crucial messages. She would then turn it around on me, telling me I was too emotionally fragile to handle the pressures of running my own business. Her words were a poison, slowly eroding my confidence and my will to pursue my own dreams. The cruelest irony, however, was how she would use her business knowledge to undermine me. I had just perfected a new line of gourmet tarts, a recipe I had poured my heart into. I had a potential client, a high-end restaurant, interested in my desserts. I was so excited, but Chloe, knowing the value of this opportunity, would subtly dismiss my creative ideas, telling me they were too niche or not sophisticated enough. She'd accidentally delete client emails from my inbox or forget to pass along crucial messages. She would then turn it around on me, telling me I was too emotionally fragile to handle the pressures of running my own business. Her words were a poison, slowly eroding my confidence and my will to pursue my own dreams. These insidious emotional manipulations, these small but constant betrayals, were the scars she left behind. And in their painful healing, I was about to become the storm he never saw coming. The quiet, insidious sabotage continued, a slow, agonizing erosion of my confidence and my brand. Chloe, my best friend and business partner, had become my saboteur, and I was tragically slow to see it. Every time I had a win, she'd find a way to subtly undermine it. Every time I gained a new follower or a new client, she'd be there with a veiled insult or a dismissive remark. She was the shadow behind my success, and she was slowly, systematically tearing it down. The breaking point, however, came with a life-changing opportunity. A wealthy, influential investor, a man named Marcus, had been following my blog for months. He loved my creative vision, my passion for unique, emotionally resonant food. He called me, wanting to meet in person. Aurora, he said, his voice warm and genuine, I want to invest in you. I want to help you open your dream restaurant. My heart soared. It was everything I had ever wanted. I immediately called Chloe, bubbling with excitement. Chloe, we did it. We finally did it. She listened, her voice filled with a feigned excitement that now feels like a cruel mockery. That's amazing, Aurora. We'll have to get started on the business plan right away. She then, with a strange, possessive tone, insisted on handling all the communication with Marcus, claiming it was too complicated for me. I, trusting her implicitly, agreed, believing she was protecting me, not stealing my dream. But as the days went on, a strange feeling of unease began to grow. Marcus, who had initially been so enthusiastic, became distant, his emails short and formal. When I asked Chloe about it, she'd dismiss my concerns with a wave of her hand. He's just busy, Aurora. You worry too much. But my gut screamed otherwise. I started doing some digging, subtly checking her work emails and her calendar, using my own secret access codes I had from my blog. What I found was a betrayal so profound it left me breathless. Chloe had been emailing Marcus, not with support, but with malicious lies. She had painted a picture of me as an unstable, emotionally fragile artist, incapable of running a business. She had subtly sabotaged my reputation, using her business savvy to poison the well. She had even, in a final act of cruelty, sent him an email with the subject line, "Final warning about Aurora," with a fabricated list of my unprofessional behavior. She wasn't my partner. She was my saboteur, and she was doing it all to take control of my dream, to turn my success into her own. The investment deal fell through. Marcus, convinced by Chloe's lies, withdrew his offer. My dream, which had been so close, was now shattered, my reputation in tatters, my heart broken. The silence that followed was deafening, the quiet, insidious betrayal a wound that festered. She thought she could destroy me quietly, that her silence would be my end. She was wrong. Her quiet betrayal was about to be met with a roar of my success, a roar that would silence her forever. The revelation of Chloe's quiet, insidious sabotage was a betrayal so profound it transcended the initial heartbreak. She hadn't just been a bad friend, she had been a saboteur, a ruthless partner who had poisoned the well, destroying my reputation and my dream from the inside. The investment deal, the one that was supposed to launch my restaurant, was gone. My reputation, my name, my dreams, all in tatters, all because of her quiet, relentless lies. I didn't confront her, not yet. The pain was too raw, the anger too cold and precise. Confrontation would give her the power to deny, to manipulate, to play the victim. I knew her greatest weapon was her charismatic charm, her ability to spin a narrative. I refused to give her that stage. My silence was a temporary thing, a quiet pause before the roaring of my revenge. I spent the next few weeks in a haze of raw grief and a feverish, meticulous planning. The food blog, once a source of joy, now felt like a painful reminder of her betrayal. I couldn't bring myself to even enter the kitchen. I had lost everything, my dream, my business partner, my best friend. The silence that had descended on my life was deafening, but in that silence I found a new, powerful sense of purpose. I began to dig. I started with my financial records, meticulously tracking every penny I had lent her for business expenses, every hour of unpaid work I had done for our blog. The betrayal was not just emotional, it was financial, a cold, calculated theft of my time, my money, and my professional identity. The most damning piece of evidence, however, came from the digital realm. I had created the blog from scratch, building a failsafe, a single backdoor that gave me access to its internal servers and digital archives, a secret key I had never used. She had no idea it existed. She thought she had complete control of her digital kingdom. She was wrong. I used my access to dig into her professional life, unearthing a trove of secrets, manipulated financial statements she had used to mislead clients, explicit communications with a developer she had bribed to get ahead, and most damningly, a series of emails where she explicitly discussed how she had used me, how she had borrowed my money with no intention of paying it back, and how she had convinced me to do all my design work for free with a vague promise of partnership. Her own words, cold and calculating, would be her undoing. I found a new friend, Ben, a kind and grounded architect who was working on a project in the same building as my new studio. He saw my pain, my anger, and my quiet resolve. He became my confidante, my rock, a non-judge, mental presence who helped me see my own worth. He was a new kind of support, one built on genuine empathy, not on manipulation. With his unwavering belief in me, the woman Chloe tried to destroy quietly was not just healing. She was transforming into a force of nature, a storm she never saw coming. The sting of Chloe's final cruelty had given way to a cold, unwavering purpose. My heartbreak was a raw wound, but it was now overshadowed by a chilling, methodical focus. The silence in my new studio apartment, a small, sun-drenched space I had found for myself, was not lonely. It was a sanctuary of my own making, a blank canvas for my retribution. I didn't tell a soul, not even Ben, about my plan. This was my fight, my pain, and my revenge. I immersed myself in a feverish state of work, channeling my grief and anger into my digital investigation. My old backdoor into the blog's servers was my most potent weapon. I spent hours sifting through emails, financial documents, and internal communications, meticulously compiling a digital dossier of Chloe's professional and personal deceit. My creative skills, once used to build her brand, were now deployed to create a powerful, irrefutable narrative of her betrayal. The story was so much bigger than just me. It was about her fraud, her manipulation of investors, and her disregard for anyone who stood in the way of her ambition. The evidence was damning. Manipulated financial forecasts designed to mislead new investors, a series of the book's payments to a developer to get a project fast-tracked, and a cache of emails where Chloe openly discussed her plan to exploit my emotions and talent for her own gain. She had even, in one particularly egregious email, discussed how my emotional fragility was a useful tool for her, allowing her to subtly sabotage my own career so I would remain dependent on her. The sheer callousness of her words was breathtaking. My heart, which I thought had nothing left to break, shattered anew. I began to see my life in a new light. Chloe's gaslighting, her subtle sabotage, her constant dismissal of my worth, it was all a deliberate, calculated strategy to keep me small, to ensure I would be nothing more than her shadow. The scars he left behind were not a sign of my weakness, but a testament to her deliberate cruelty. And in that realization, a new strength was born, a resilience that was unbreakable. My new friend, Ben, an architect, became my unsuspecting accomplice. He had asked me for some graphic design work for a new website he was launching, a passion project for sustainable architecture. This was the perfect cover. I poured my talent and my rage into his website, creating a beautiful, elegant design that was the antithesis of Chloe's flashy but fraudulent branding. It was a creative refuge, a way to channel my pain into a positive, tangible outcome. Ben was my rock, my sounding board, and he saw my renewed energy as a sign of my healing. He never suspected the storm that was brewing beneath the surface. I knew that a direct, messy confrontation would be ineffective. Chloe would twist the narrative, play the victim, and discredit me. My plan was to hit her where she was most vulnerable, her image, her credibility, her professional reputation. I would use my intimate knowledge of her weaknesses, my skills, and my new-found strength to orchestrate her public and deeply personal downfall. The storm was coming, and Chloe, basking in the sunlight of her false success, had no idea she was about to be caught right in the middle of it. With my digital dossier of Chloe's deception complete, the time for my quiet revenge was upon me. The evidence was irrefutable. Screenshots of manipulated financial statements, recordings of her phone calls with a bribed developer, and a damning folder of emails detailing her plan to exploit my emotions and talent for her own gain. It was all there, a meticulously compiled narrative of her fraud. I had given her my heart, and she had left me with scars, but the healing had given me a new, powerful resolve. I didn't want a messy, public confrontation. I wanted to hit her where she was most vulnerable, her image and her career. I knew her new investors, a group of powerful but notoriously cautious venture capitalists, were her lifeline. I also knew that their trust was built on a foundation of her carefully constructed lies. I decided to send the full, unredacted dossier to the head of the investment firm, a stern, ethical woman I had briefly met at a corporate event and whose reputation for integrity was impeccable. I sent the email from an anonymous account, complete with a subject line that would be impossible to ignore, regarding Chloe and last name, a failsafe you didn't know you needed. I included a link to a secure, untraceable server where I had uploaded all the evidence. My new friend, Ben, the kind architect, became my unsuspecting accomplice. He had asked me for some graphic design work for a new website he was launching, a passion project for sustainable architecture. This was the perfect cover. I poured my talent and my rage into his website, creating a beautiful, elegant design that was the antithesis of Chloe's flashy but fraudulent branding. It was a creative refuge, a way to channel my pain into a positive, tangible outcome. Ben was my rock, my sounding board, and he saw my renewed energy as a sign of my healing. He never suspected the storm that was brewing beneath the surface. The fallout from my anonymous email was immediate and explosive. Chloe's investors, upon reviewing the damning evidence, launched an immediate, top-secret internal audit. Her funding was frozen. Her team, bewildered and worried, started reaching out to me, sensing that something was wrong. Her confident, arrogant texts to me stopped entirely, replaced by a desperate, frantic silence. She knew the storm was coming, and she knew I was the one who had unleashed it. My first act of public revenge, however, was not about her. It was about me. I launched my own design studio, a bold, defiant move that was a direct repudiation of her gaslighting. I named it Phoenix Designs, a tribute to my own resurrection from the ashes of her betrayal. The branding was clean, powerful, and authentic, a reflection of my new self-worth. The final public blow came at a major industry conference where Chloe was scheduled to be the keynote speaker, a moment of triumph for her career. Instead, I stood up from my quiet seat in the back of the auditorium, a small, unassuming figure, and walked to the microphone. With a calm, unwavering voice, I didn't speak of her betrayal or her manipulation. Instead, I spoke about my own journey, my own passion, my own new studio, and then I simply said, "True innovation is built on integrity, not on lies." As I walked away, the screens behind her, which had been showcasing her company's new branding, suddenly switched to the sleek, elegant logo of my new studio, Phoenix Designs, a silent and powerful message for the entire industry to see. The woman she had broken was no longer silent. She was the storm, and she had just stolen the thunder from her moment of triumph. The chaos that erupted at the industry conference was a symphony of Chloe's downfall. The screens, once filled with the flashy branding of her company, now displayed the elegant, defiant logo of my new studio, Phoenix Designs. The audience, initially bewildered by my speech, now buzzed with whispers, connecting the dots. The storm I had warned her of was no longer an abstract threat. It was a visible, undeniable presence, and it had just stolen the spotlight from her moment of triumph. Chloe, on stage, stood frozen. Her confident, charismatic smile had vanished, replaced by a mask of sheer panic. She knew I was the one who had unleashed the storm. Her carefully constructed professional facade was crumbling in real time, in front of the very people she had spent years trying to impress. Her investors, who had already been tipped off by my anonymous email, were seated in the front row. Their faces, once filled with a cautious optimism, were now a picture of cold, ruthless disappointment. A senior partner stood up, her face grim, and silently walked out of the auditorium, a clear and public statement of their lack of confidence. The other investors followed suit, their quiet departure a death knell for Chloe's startup. I walked away from the microphone, my heart pounding, but my face calm. Chloe finally found me in the back of the room, her face a contorted mask of fury and desperation. She lunged towards me, but a new confidence in my posture, a new resolve in my eyes, stopped her in her tracks. "You did this," she hissed, her voice trembling with impotent rage. "You ruined my life, after everything I did for you." I just looked at her, my expression serene, a quiet triumph in my eyes. "Everything you did for me." I retorted, my voice clear and steady. "You took my money, you took my time, you gaslit me, you sabotaged me, you left me with nothing but scars. I gave you my heart, Chloe, and you gave me nothing but pain." Her eyes widened, her bravado finally cracking. She had never expected me to fight back. She had never expected me to be so strong. She had never expected the emotional and fragile woman she had gaslit for years to be the very force that would tear her world apart. The room, which had been so quick to applaud her charm, was now a chorus of murmurs, of people pointing and whispering, of journalists clamoring for answers. The storm was no longer just an abstract concept, it was a public spectacle, and she was caught right in the middle of it. I smiled, a slow, deliberate smile that promised her complete and utter ruin. She had left me with nothing, but in her cruelty, she had also given me the strength to build a new life, a new studio, a new, powerful identity. The woman she had broken was no longer silent. She was the storm, and she had just stolen her thunder. The aftermath of the conference was immediate and cataclysmic for Chloe. The story of her deception, of the manipulated financial statements, and of her cruel treatment of me, went viral. Her investors pulled out, her company, Innovate, imploded, and her ambitious career, once so promising, was utterly destroyed. She was left with nothing, a stark and public testament to the consequences of her actions. She became a pariah, her name synonymous with greed, fraud, and emotional abuse. For me, the aftermath was a journey of profound liberation and self-discovery. The cold, righteous anger that had fueled my revenge slowly gave way to a powerful, quiet peace. My new design studio, Phoenix Designs, flourished. The story of my resilience, of the woman who rose from the ashes of betrayal, resonated with clients and with the creative community. My designs, once a hidden talent, were now a testament to my newfound strength and my uncompromising integrity. My friendship with Ben, the kind architect, deepened into a loving, healthy partnership. He saw my passion, my strength, and my scars, and he loved me not in spite of them, but because of them. He was a stark contrast to Chloe, a man who saw my talent as a source of light, not something to be controlled. With his unwavering support, I found a new kind of happiness, one built on a foundation of mutual respect and genuine affection. I learned invaluable lessons from the ordeal. I learned that my self-worth was not dependent on anyone's approval. I learned that my passion and my creativity were my greatest strengths, not a weakness to be controlled. And most importantly, I learned that the scars she left behind were not a sign of my fragility, but a powerful, permanent reminder of my resilience. I saw Chloe once, a few years later, at a casual coffee shop. She looked tired and defeated, a shadow of the charismatic woman she once was. She saw me, but her gaze was filled with a look of shame and regret. She knew what she had lost. I simply nodded, gave her a polite, detached smile, and walked away, my hand in Ben's. I had given her my heart, she gave me scars, now I was the storm she never saw coming, and I had finally left her in the dust, a permanent, unforgettable monument to the woman whose spirit she thought she could break, and whose triumph she was forced to witness.